black thing go from left to right, and I thought, I'm going to die out here. No one's ever going to know. I couldn't believe what my eyeballs were showing me. I'll never forget how evil the eyes were. It was horrible. I mean, I've never seen nothing that evil.
It ran towards me at a rate that I can't even explain. Turned and stared at me, and this look of, I just want to kill you. I want to say it was human, but it wasn't.
He was yelling at me to grab a gun, grab a gun. I was like, for what? He said, just grab a gun. And there's footprints all the way to the door of my house. It had went inside my garage, all the way to the door.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sure.
Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Check us out online at sasquatchchronicles.com. If you've had an encounter, email me. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com.
Whilst I cannot give any confirmation at this stage around fatalities and casualties, what I can say is that it is clear that this is one of New Zealand's darkest days. There is no place in New Zealand for such acts of extreme and unprecedented violence.
At least 49 people were killed and dozens wounded during services. They were in prayer. The mosques are just 3 miles apart. The victims who did get out covered in blood were rushed to the hospital.
Our hearts go out to all the victims, their families, and of course everyone else who has been affected. And at the same time, we acknowledge the extraordinary bravery and courage of our police, our first responders, and all those that are now supporting the victims of this attack. I'm very shocked that it has happened here, but I'm shocked that it's happened in New Zealand. Sadly, because of the numbers of people who have been killed, there will have to be a large number of funerals.
For now, my thoughts, and I'm sure the thoughts of all New Zealanders, are with those who have been affected and also with their families. The person who has perpetuated this violence against us, they have no place in New Zealand.
The nature of the crime, would you describe it as a hate crime?
I would describe it as an unprecedented act of violence, an act that has absolutely no place in New Zealand. This is not who we are.
Every one of us, every single day, is blessed with the air that we breathe, the opportunities that we have. And I challenge you every single day to get out of bed and do something that your future self will be proud of.
Tragic. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. You know, I had a lot of listeners email me and ask me to do a shout out for the people of New Zealand, and somehow a shout out seemed very inappropriate, but I put together that, I guess, as my way as a shout out. Thoughts and prayers to everyone in New Zealand and around the world. You know, it's a shame this goes on in America, goes on in Europe, goes on in the Middle East, and maybe one day we'll stop killing each other based on race and what God do you worship. Again, thank you again for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you. Get your mind off things. We'll be talking to Linda, and Linda comes to us from Indiana. She grew up with Sasquatch on her property. She grew up on a property, bought a home close to the property she grew up on, and she's been running into other things, a lot worse than Bigfoot. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. If you get a chance, check out the website, sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. But let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Linda to the show. Linda, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. And I know you're out in Indiana and you grew up with these things around your property. If you would you mind starting from the beginning? Tell us about the property you grew up on and the first time you had actually seen the creatures.
Okay. Well, the property's, it's a very rural area, lots of woods, lots of pasture land. We grew up we kind of lived off grid. We sort of growed our own food. We spent a lot of time out in the woods and out in the field, just outdoors in general. But as a rule, we always tried to get everything done, and we were indoors by dark. And I remember having instances as a younger child. You know, we would be back in the woods. Maybe my dad or someone would see something and he would say, pack everything up and let's go. And we would go home, we'd go in. Him and my brothers would get guns and dogs and go back out into the woods. And I never really knew, I was just young. And when I would ask questions, I was just told to be quiet. They didn't want to answer a lot of questions about it because they didn't really have answers. They just knew there was something around our house and in the area that you had to be careful about. We would hear it at night. It would scream sometimes it would sound like a woman screaming. We would hear it push trees. No one knew what it was, but it was just it was kind of just a part of our lives, and nobody really made a big deal out of it like you would think they would. We just kind of accepted it and went along. And so we tried to get everything finished and indoors before nighttime. But one time that I can remember that I clearly actually saw it, the first time I ever really saw it, I did a lot of training horses. I would take horses and just, sometimes people would want them trained, for trail riding. And in order to do that, you have to take them back in the woods and ride them. And the whole point is just getting them used to and familiar with the sounds of the woods and trees snapping and, the things that they might encounter later on a trail ride that made them a good trail horse. And we have an area close to where I live that is, it has a lot of tourists, and they actually have a barn there where they do trail rides, and that's who I was doing this for at the time. And so I had a horse. She had been ridden a few times, but she was still not familiar, not real familiar with the trail, but had been doing really well. So I'm taking her back in the woods, and I was riding her through the trails. And the way the terrain is there, you exit our pasture and you would enter a small section of woods, and then there would be like a power line, like where the grass and the power lines kind of cut through the woods there. There'd be a grassy area. And then you would come back into the woods again. And if you wove around on those trails back in there, I mean, the woods went on hundreds of acres. But back in there, pretty far back was like some old like an old wagon trail. And there was cabins there. They had fallen down. There was a barn. And all this was all grown up with blackberry bushes. And these trails kind of cut right through those blackberry bushes. And it was a great place really to take, a horse and get her accustomed to like those, briars kind of brushing up against you, maybe hanging onto you and things. And it was a pretty place, and you could even snag a blackberry while you were at it. So I'm riding through these trails. I'm riding through these bushes, and when I say briars, they're grown up. It's a mess kind of back there, but I thought at first that I heard something, that I heard someone walking with me, kind of moving along with me. And I would stop her and I would listen, and I'd walk again. And once or twice I caught a glimpse of something like movement through the briars and on the other side. But whoever it was not, I was thinking it was a person. They weren't making a lot of noise, but I mean, by no means were they making that much noise, but it was enough, when you're back there and you're the only person back there, just you and a horse. And I was tuned in, I was listening, and, I thought somebody's following me back here. And I got kind of creeped out, and I kind of thought back to a conversation I'd heard my brother tell my mom, not to let me back in there without telling me to take something with me, some type of weapon, in other words. And I hadn't really told my mom I was going. She knew I was out there with the horses, but she did not know I'd rode off into the woods. But I kind of did my own thing like that, so it wasn't odd that I didn't tell her. But I remember that conversation, and that just made me get even more creeped out. So, and I caught a glimpse of something, but all I saw was black. I didn't see any. It looked black to me. I didn't see any features. I just could catch movement. Enough for me to realize that what I thought was somebody was following me, or paralleling me, I should say. So I turn her back, and I'm starting to head back toward our house. And I know that there is a part of the trail once you come out of these blackberry bushes that's kind of beat down to the point where it's like sandy, because it was very hard to listen for footprints when you can hear the horse's hoofs underneath you. So I purposely hit that sandy area. And once I hit that sandy area, there was no doubt somebody was definitely following me, and they were walking along the left side of me. That trail is a little bit elevated. I mean, the woods drops off just a little bit on the left side and gradually has a downhill slope off to the left. But that is where he or she was following me at, was off to the left. And I'm just getting more and more shook up. This horse is so nervous at this point that she's all lathered up, and it's everything I can do to keep her under control. And I was getting really scared because I thought she was going to throw me, and I did not want to be left back there in these woods with God knows what or who that was following me. And so I knew at the end of this trail was that power line. And once she hit that power line, it was just a little patch of woods, and there was my house. So I was debating on what to do, but they kind of made the decision for me. She stopped, and she blew. Horses will blow through their nose, and like deer and that. I don't know. I guess you'd have to hear it to know what I'm talking about, but they usually do it in fear or about something they're unsure of, or just when they're excited, things, various different reasons. But she blew. She made that noise. And when she did, something returned, did the same thing back off to the left of me. And as soon as they exchanged that noise, my horse took off. I let her go. But this thing off to the left comes like barreling towards me up that hill. And when it's come out, I caught a glimpse of something big and something black. which was enough for me. I didn't need details. I just let her go. I let her have her reins, and I just grabbed a hold of the horn of that saddle and let her go. So she takes off full throttle toward the house. And this thing hits the trail. It finally, I told you there was a downhill grade there. It runs up and it hits that trail behind me. So she's running. She's, just hauling butt. And I'm kind of leaning down. I was trying to make sure I stayed on because she's a thoroughbred. She could run. She could run really fast. And she could actually, if she took off too fast, she'd take off right out from underneath you. But you had to really hang on. And I'm hanging on tight. And I kind of look underneath my arm. I don't know if you know how when you're riding, my hands are up there, and I kind of look underneath my arm, and I see this thing. And I'm thinking I would see it way back in the distance because this horse is running fast. And to my horror, it is not that far behind me at all. It's pretty much right on me. And I noticed that it is not just running on 2 feet. It is putting its hands, I guess you'd say hands. It's reaching out with its hands, and it's dropping its 2 arms on the ground, its hands, and pushing back. I don't know if I described that correctly, but
yeah, kind of a leap.
It's using its knuckles. Yeah, like a big old ape. Oh my God! But it looks solid black to me. I did not see any features, but you got to remember that we're in motion. This is all happening fast, and I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was a monster. I didn't have a clue what that was. And I looked back at it twice, and 2 times, and both times I noticed that. And it was making these big leaps, and it was getting so close. I could not believe it could keep up with that horse like that. But it went across the power line behind us, and it was not quite dark yet. That's where I got the first look at. Once we entered the woods, right before we get to our pasture, I look back again, and that's the second time. And then I heard it kind of slow up. We were coming to the fence that entered our pasture. And I heard it. Now, my horse, she was completely out of control. She ran right through the fence. It cut us both up all to pieces. She ran all the way to the barn and never stopped. I like to never stopped her in there. She just was absolutely, she was running I felt like she was running for her life, and I'm glad I had her because there's no way I could have outrun that thing. So it was pretty much, it was horrifying.
Yeah, it is. It's terrifying.
I got back to the barn, jumped off. Of course, the first thing I did was to run and see if it's following me. It wasn't. No, I didn't see nothing. And I was in trouble because I had a busted fence, a busted horse, and I was, we had other animals in there. So I had to very quickly get my brothers and get back up there and get that fence fixed back, and before our other animals got out. But I remember I was telling them about it, and they just really, they were like, well, you shouldn't have been back in there. I told Mom, he started kind of, giving me the 1-2 for being back in there without saying anything. And they didn't make a big deal out of it. They fixed the fence. I patched up the horse and myself, and that was that incident.
Yeah, it kind of seems like
how that happened.
It kind of seems like your family knew about it. I know you said that in the beginning, but
for a fact.
It's kind of bizarre when that happens and everyone's like, well, let's just go fix the fence. But when people have them on their property, I hear stuff like this. Tell me about the time that you saw it. You got a good look at it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So back out there in the barn lot again with the horses. It's obvious what I did every day after school. So when we'd get our chores done and everything, that's what I would do. I really enjoyed this. So it was just my hobby. When I would get done working them out or doing anything, I would brush them all down, show them a little love. So I'm standing there, and the way the property is here in this corner, we had a great big barn. And in back of that barn was a couple round pens or corrals, I'll put it that way. And I had the horse in there. I'd been working her a little bit. And then there was just a little bit I'll say about 30 feet to the wood line right there. I mean, it made a big circle, but it come in close to the barn at that point right there. So about 30 feet, and there is a couple trees, and there's a post there because we had a fence where we entered the woods a lot right there. And there's a gate up, one of the big metal gates. And I'm done brushing her out, but I had her in the round pen. I was just brushing her, rubbing on her and petting her. And I just sewed up all my equipment up on the thing, and I'm cleaning it all off and just spending some time with the animal. I do that, and that same noise, the horse blows again. This is a different horse, but she blows. And I look over and I'm like, what's the matter? And I don't see nothing. And I look over her back. Now, she did not run. She was pretty calm considering. She turns her head, and I look over her back in the same direction that she's looking. And standing there at this gate, at that metal gate, is this animal. And he's standing on it. And I say he's on the other side of it. And so his body is on the side of the woods. And he's got one arm or hand around the post. He's frozen in what looked like a position like he would be if he was going to step over that gate. But he's just paused there because I looked at him. And oh gosh, he's really, this one did not look as black as the one that I had seen that chased me. This was more of like a reddish brown. Give you that orangutan type feeling, like he had hair like on his arm that was up holding onto that pole. I could see long hair hanging off of that, and not fur, hair hanging. It was actually nice, like combed out. But he's got his arm up there. I remember his foot was like up on the fence, up on the gate, but I didn't look too much at that. His hands had like a gray appearance, like they were light gray. And his face was light gray. And his hair come down like he had a real high forehead. It didn't come down far on his face. It just sort of framed his face out, his hair did. He looked very ape-like to me. He had the big mouth, big round brown eyes. But he was huge. He was huge. He was easily as tall as those trees there. I'm going to guess that he was like 8 or 9 foot tall. He was big enough that he was going to step over that gate, just put his leg over it. And it was easily a 4 foot gate. He was just going to throw his leg over it and step over it. And he was just froze there. I mean, I just stopped and I stared at him for a minute. It took my mind a second to realize that what I was looking at, and I still didn't know what I was looking at. I knew that was the thing that lived in the woods and that had chased me. I knew what it was. I didn't know the technical name, but he was so quiet. I cannot believe that he got that close to me and this horse without either one of us even hearing him or noticing. And he did the weirdest thing. He took his lips and he like flipped his upper lip up like against his nose. I don't know how to explain it. He flipped his lips up, like turned them inside out at me. And that was it. I just took off running, like I just ran screaming, took off through the gate. I was gone. I never looked back. He did not pursue me in any way, but I never stopped running till I got to the house, and I was screaming. And that time, my parents, they did get guns, and they did go out, and they did shoot all around our house. I remember my dad just standing out there shooting because he was mad that they were coming that close. He said, that's too effing close, I don't want them in that close to the house. And I'm like, them what? What are they? And my mom, they're just like, we don't know. But he's like, it don't matter. They don't need to be this close to the house. He said, the next one that comes up there, I'm shooting him,
Yeah, I don't blame him. Now,
It was
you say he. What made you think it was a he?
Oh, well, he had his leg as he had, I think, this in my mind, he was getting ready to cross that fence with his leg, and he had it sewed up. He had it raised up, and you could clearly see that he was a boy.
I gotcha.
And I was like, oh my gosh! Just his size. That was the other thing. His shoulders and he looked like a really ripped, like, bodybuilder type guy. That's what he looked like, honestly. You could even see his stomach, and his stomach was gray. His skin was gray colored, and his hair was more of like a auburn, reddish brown. It was really, I know I hear a lot of people say that they look very human. To me, he did not look very human. He had I'm trying to think of something to compare it to. He had a really high forehead. Like I said, his hair, his skin was like a leathery gray. It was darker on his face. He wasn't hideously ugly like people say either. I didn't think he was. But he didn't have a mean expression. He just had a blank expression. His nose was not as flat like a gorilla's, not as, how it's kind of smashed in. It was more, I will say that, it was more human-like, his nose was. I said he looked more like a monkey to me, though, than a human. Other than that nose, he had very ape-like features, like the big mouth, and he had those big lip, like if you've seen a chimp or something, how their lips kind of stick out, or they've got that big straight mouth, and that's what he did. He flipped his lips up at me, like he pulled like his top lip, he flipped it inside out. Does that make sense?
It does. So he was showing you his teeth?
Attempting to, I think. I did not see his teeth, but I saw the pink on the inside of his lip. He flipped it inside out. I don't know what he meant by that. I don't know what that. I took it as a threat. I took it like as he was like snarling at me or something. But now that I think about it, I don't know if I've never seen his teeth, but he definitely opened his mouth like that. And my dad was thinking, well, did he flip his lip up? I don't know if you've seen horses and deer and that. A lot of times animals, when they want a smell, they will kind of touch it with their lip, and they'll flip their lip up. Like a horse will flip its lip up inside out and push that smell up into its nostrils. Deer do the same thing. A lot of animals do this. What they're doing is just they're pushing that scent up into their nose more so that they can smell, and they know what's going on. They can tell everything from a smell. They're so good at they're so good at that. They could smell where something had gone to the bathroom, and they can tell, everything they need to know about that other animal by smelling. And it was something similar to that. That's what it looked like. He flipped his lip up like that. I can't explain. I know it sounds ridiculous.
No, it doesn't sound ridiculous at all, actually.
It caught my attention because his lip was real pink on the inside. It just showed up. The stupidest things stick out to you in moments like that. It's like time froze. But I just remember that so clearly because I thought that was like the oddest thing I've ever, well, he was the oddest thing I've ever seen, but what he did and what he meant by that, I don't know what he was doing. But I did not, the fact that he had snuck up behind me like that, so quiet, woo. I don't know how he did it. And I don't know if he was going to kill me. I don't know what he was doing. I don't. And it terrified me.
It would definitely terrify me if I turned around and saw one looking at me like that. How far away from you was this thing?
Easily, let's see, there's about 100, easily probably about 100 yards, maybe. It wasn't that far. Wasn't far at all, actually. It wasn't far enough for me.
Yeah, that's close.
I could see him like plain as day. There was nothing obstructing my vision. I mean, it was just the flat ground right there and some fences, but he could have easily cleared that in no time if he had wanted. He was so tall and so big. But his hair, I do remember, was long, not short. I guess not what I expected. It was real long, kind of flowy on his arm there. It's a lot longer than I would have expected. And I was shocked that he was not black, because I could have sworn the first thing that chased me was black.
Yeah.
But in the fading sun, he was definitely reddish colored.
Yeah, it sounds like there was more than one. Later in life, did you ever sit your dad down and talk to him about this, or your mom, and go, what was going on all that time on this property?
Yeah, I used to ask him, definitely, because that incident there happened when I was about 17. And I asked him many times, what in the world, what is that, And they would say, we don't know. It's been here. My dad said, oh, it's been here ever since we bought the property. And I was like, well, what is it? And they just said they didn't know. He said it never really did hurt anything. He said, I couldn't tell you what they are. He said, I've seen them out hunting. And my dad would go right in the woods at night and go, coon hunting and everything at night, knowing these things were back there. But he was not he was a rough man. I mean, he wasn't scared of nothing. And he'd go armed. Don't get me wrong. Everybody had a gun. But he looked at it like, until they come up here and they do something that I need to, as long as they ain't messing with us, they would take a little bit of food out of our garden. We had a huge garden. I do remember they would take potatoes a lot, or I never saw them. They would just disappear. We would have things come up missing like that, but they did not harm our animals. We had chickens. We had small animals that they could have easily gotten to. And then I recall they never did. I don't know why, because it would have been pretty easy. But whenever he felt like they got too close, like I said, he'd go out there and he would take dogs and he would hit the woods and he'd shoot. I mean, even if it was up in the air, just was trying to make a point. Stay back.
Yeah. Did anyone else in the family have a very close encounter or see it up close?
Probably every member of my family.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we have every member of my family, everyone in the area has had a run-in. I'll tell you real quick about a gentleman who is building a house. He came in, he had moved down from, it seems like New Jersey. He was not from the country originally. And he bought a patch of land up from us. When I say up from us, I mean several miles, but he cleared out a little patch of woods, and he had a little house built back there, a little brick house. And he was working there at night, putting up drywall inside. While he was there, something kept beating on the house, shoving, slapping the walls, hitting it with things. He thought it was people of the neighborhood. And he came around to everyone's house, and he brought a basket of fruit, and he brought a fruit basket. And he was like, look, I hope I haven't, offended you guys. I know everybody around here is pretty close-knit, and I just want you guys to know I'm not going to be grouchy about you walking on my property. I know everybody here, everyone kind of was very, as long as you don't tear nothing up. We didn't go, hey, you stepped over on my property line. It wasn't like that. We all just sort of, it was just everyone that lived there was just, they'd help you. They give you the shirt off their back if you needed them to. And we were a close-knit community. And he was just real, like, I know people don't appreciate me coming up here and moving in. I'm an outsider. And my dad's like, well, you're fine. You're not bothering anybody. And he's like, well, I'm just going to tell you. He said, they're coming up and they're beating on my house. And he's like, these boys, he thought it was neighborhood boys. He thought it was the neighborhood people kind of giving him the, we don't want you around kind of thing. But it wasn't. And my dad told him, he said, my dad went up to his house and they had footprints all around. And my dad said, that's not us. That's, nobody here minds you. You're not bothering anyone. And I'm assuming my dad told him what was going on. So a week later, he's in there and something major happened. I guess it literally knocked the side of the house, the brick, everything came out. Where they hit it, I don't know what they hit it with. He said they were up there shoving on the house, beating on the house, more than one. And they terrorized this man all night. Long story short, he never finished the house and he left the area. And we did not see him again. So that house is actually still there and unfinished. Now it's just run down and, it's all grown up. But he never finished. He just left.
I think a lot of times people out in rural areas, they can't always just get up and leave. You know what I mean? I think that most people in situations like your parents and like what you were in, what I find a lot of times with people who grew up in rural areas, they know about these sayings. They'll stay. They'll stay and put up with it. Rarely do they get up and leave. And a lot of times when outsiders come in, they'll bail. But sometimes, if you're out there and you're in those areas, that's not always an option. Sometimes you have to stay.
It does. Now that I'm an adult and I think back about it, I'm like, I cannot believe that they just acted like it was just a part of our life and, just deal with it and go on and don't tell nobody about it because they'll think you're a nut, but just go on and deal with it until they do something to hurt us. And if they did do something to hurt us or that we didn't like, we would have taken matters into our own hand anyway. We still would not have went and got, called the police or done anything like that. They still would have just been handled on a personal level, and that's it. And that's how it was. And that was our norm, And I didn't realize how abnormal it was until I became an adult and had kids myself.
Yeah, I understand. I wanted to ask you, did anyone ever see any females or little ones out there?
I'm trying to think that I'm aware of. Maybe one lady that I know of might have mentioned she had baby goats up at her house. Now, I told you they never touched any of our animals. They did not. But they did touch other people's. And these people... And you got to remember, this is a big old patch of woods, but we're all kind of living around the outskirts of these woods. So they could kind of they went to other people's houses besides ours. And they had goats. And I do remember that they were taking her goats. And I believe that I would love to give her name, but I better not. She had a bunch of them, and she did claim that there was two. She said they were around the size of us kids, and another one. And she said, I saw them carrying my goats off. They had one under each arm. She was just bawling her eyes out because she was very she tended to these goats a lot, and they had little babies. The little goats were just cute as they could be, and she'd be out there feeding them. And she had a bunch of them. They were like those different kinds, the little feeder goats and all different kinds like that. And she'd come out one evening. It wasn't even dark all the way. And she pulled in from dropping her son off at the airport. And he had went to the military. And she said when she came up, they were leaving her barn, exiting down through the woods. And she said the bigger one had one under each arm, and the smaller ones each had one. And so they had taken a total of 4 of her goats, and they were hustling back to the wood line. And she'd come down to ask my dad and my brothers to go up there and do something about it. She was very upset because at this point she was there by herself because she had just dropped her son off at the airport to head off to the military. So she was there by herself at that point, and she wanted my dad and my brothers to go up there and see if they could do something because she was very, very upset about them sneaking off with her goats. And she even later on set a bear trap out there attached to a pole. She had a big fence post, concreted in. She hooked a bear trap to it with a piece of chain and tried to bait something in. And she lost the pole and the bear trap. Both were ripped up out of the ground. And that did go down in a police report. She did report that.
Why do you think that they harmed other people's animals, but didn't harm your guys's. You know what I mean? Was it, you think, because of your dad going out there?
I do. Yeah, I do, for sure. Everybody in my dad had a name in the neighborhood. Oh, I better watch because everyone will know who I am. My dad had a name in the neighborhood, and apparently he had one with them as well. But he just, whenever anything major would happen, he would go immediately. Like I told you, if we were cutting wood and he saw something, we went to the house, we set our stuff down, and the first thing he'd do is grab a gun and dogs. And I had I have a lot of brothers. A lot. We're a big family. And as in the double digits. There's a lot of us. And they would go make a big deal of it. He would chase them, he'd shoot. He made it abundantly clear that this was our property. And that can be yours. But don't come over here hurting things. Don't come over here messing with us. And they respected it, I guess, as far as I know. I don't remember them ever touching anything of ours. But I do remember them messing with other people's. Because they were not popular. And everyone's just terrified of them. But nobody really did anything about it. We just didn't go in the woods at night. We kind of, if you were right on your front porch at night, it was different. But you didn't go out around your house at night. I will say that. We didn't either.
Yeah, your dad sounds pretty hardcore. Not a man to be messed with, you know.
Well, my dad was down from the Appalachian Mountain area. He was raised, my parents were from that area, and so for them, they didn't even think this was odd. They probably lived in an area where they saw stuff that no one else ever saw anyway. So it was just normal for them. And I often wondered about that myself, and I think it's just because they were from such a remote area. They grew up in such a remote area. It was just really hard to shock them. They were used to seeing and dealing with things that other people were not. And that's just how we grew up. And just be quiet and go on about your business and get over it. Yeah, it's weird, but just accept it and move on.
Yeah, I understand. Was there any other major incidences going on that you can think of that stand out to you beyond just glimpses of them?
As far as like myself or
yourself or family or friends?
Yeah. I mean, I could keep here all day telling stories. There's just endless amounts of stories. Everyone in the area can tell you stories. Just always something. I remember, I'll even go ahead and tell you like one. No, I live, myself. This is not so much when I was a kid, but as I'm getting older, the ones when I was young, they're very hard for me to remember a lot of the details. I remember like my brothers being followed when they would squirrel hunt, always following. They did a lot of that. If you were in the woods, you would get followed a lot. So they would oftentimes go hunt or go be squirrel hunting, in which you start early in the morning, and they would come back and say, I just gave it up. Something's following me, and I'm not going to be followed the whole way through the woods. It just things like that. But as I became an adult, I was in our barn one time, and this was one time I went out in the middle of the night, and I try not to do that, but we had some stuff stored down there in totes, paperwork and things just put away, old memorabilia. And my son had needed something for school. And it was down there in the barn, and it was about 10 o'clock. I did not want to go, but I had to go. He needed it. So I said, well, come on, we'll go down there and get it, And we're down there, and we're rooting through this tote trying to find this paper that we needed. And it was a certificate he'd gotten or something, And all of a sudden, just as casually as you could be, the door on the other side of the barn opens, and something walks in on the other. These are like we're in a stall, and it just walks in that other side of the stall, and huge, blacked out the whole doorway. And I remember you could hear it breathing. So now it's just me and him and this big thing in this barn, and I could hear it breathing. And I had a pistol, but I just didn't feel, I just wasn't enough. It did not feel like enough. And my son grabbed a golf club just because it happened to be standing there. And he just reached back in the first thing that he could get a hold of. And I'm like telling him, be quiet, be quiet. And it just froze. It just was standing, but you could hear it breathing. And all of us just kind of froze and stood there for a minute. I wasn't sure what to do. It was such a small space, and I was just so cornered, or I felt like I was cornered in there. And here's my son. So I had that pistol, and I got it out, and I even said it out loud. I just said, I will, I can't really say what I said, but I basically said, I'll shoot you in the head if you don't let me out of this barn. But I said it in very colorful language. Not that I don't know if they understand cuss words, but I just made it. I didn't know what else to do because really I was cornered. It was stupid to get myself in that position. I know better. And it just didn't move. It just stayed there. And I opened the door and I told my son to go. I made sure there was nothing outside because there could be more outside. He wouldn't go. He wouldn't run without me. So I didn't want him to run. I just wanted him to go toward the house because he didn't have a weapon and I did. So we just he walked and I put my back against his and I walked backwards. And we walked from the barn to my house. I just wanted to get him out of there. That's all I could think about was that I just ended up I was in a terrible position right there, cornered in that barn with this thing. And as I come out, I got almost to the house. I made it to my car. I was going to push him in the car if it come out at us. And when it blasted out the door, it just went around the barn, straight into the woods, and it plowed. It looked like a bulldozer went through there. That thing cleared trees, so much so that my neighbor heard it inside her house, in her bedroom. So the next day she was over here saying, what in the world run through the woods last night? And I was like, I don't know. I just told her I didn't know. But I did. But that was just, and that's one time, and that's why we don't go out there like that at night. And I got too comfortable and walked down there and did that, and I shouldn't have gotten herself in that position.
This is on your property now, Linda? I know it's not far from where you grew up. It's kind of generally the same area.
It is. It's exactly the same. If you cut through the woods, you would end up right back where I grew up. Like it's a large, lots of woods, and we're just kind of all around the outskirts of it and in the middle of it. And I'm, as the crow flies, I'm just several miles from where I grew up, so it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that and talk about what's going on your property. I wanted to ask you first, though, did you ever hear have you ever heard the Sierra sounds, that weird chatter?
I don't know that I have. I haven't listened to many sounds on there at all. I've personally heard a lot of sounds here, but I haven't heard that. No, if you've got an example of it.
Have you? Well, I don't have anything queued up. I wish I did. Let me ask you a different question. Have you ever heard what sounded like people talking or like a language going on out there?
Yes, I have heard that. And that's exactly what I was going to say. You'll always hear like mumbling, like people are talking, but you'll think it's at a distance. You can't make out the words, but you can just hear, like you'd hear if you heard a crowd of people like just humming, like, but you can't make out any of the words. But you can tell that it sounds like people talking at a distance. You can hear the sound, you can hear that somebody's talking, but you can't make out a single word they're saying. And we hear that a lot. And you can, when you look off my front deck, you can just look across sometimes they plant corn there, sometimes soybeans. They alternate each year, which, for the soil purposes. And so they love that area. And every night, getting around dusk, that's when you'll start hearing that. And if you are brave and you want to go out there and go to the end and look with a pair of binoculars, you can scan that wood line and you'll just see things moving in and out of the trees. Just very elusive, though. I mean, having seen one up close and knowing how large these are, I don't know how in the world they stay so quiet and so unseen. It's mind-boggling how they do it. I don't know if they spend the whole time on their stomach. I don't know how they do it, but when it starts to get close to dusk, if they've got corn over there, they really like corn, and they will come in those cornfields, and you get a lot of footprints there, and that's when you'll hear a lot of that mumbling that I was just referring to.
It's bizarre, isn't it? I mean, you would think we'd be able to catch up with them because they're so big, but I understand what you mean. It's like, well, where do they go? You know, I mean,
I know.
Do you have any idea where you think they go during the day or when they're not around their property?
Well, I used to, I don't know if you remember when I was telling you about riding the horse back there, there was old wagon trails back in the woods. There used to be, I've done a little bit of research, and there used to be, a community back there. And there's a lot of big wells, and there's several where they dug into the side of the bank and made like a cellar or a place to store their dry goods, and they're lined with rocks. Used to, when I was a kid, you could go inside of them. We never did. We were not allowed, but it would stink ferociously down there anyway. I don't know why. I don't know if animals were, something was using it because it smelled awful. But I used to think that was where they always went, just because it's just so growed up. It's so, no one goes back there. There's, partial cabins standing. They're rotted down a lot now. I was back there recently, and they've fallen down a lot, but the area is still something keeps those paths beat down. It's loaded with berries and stuff, and there's just an abundant food source. So it just seems like a place where, I guess if I was going to go hide, there's these built shelters for you pretty much, if someone wanted to use it. And they, like I said, we don't go in them, and I never have been brave enough to go in them. But when you go down by them, the ground is smooth there, like something's going in and out, and they just smell so bad. They smell horrendous.
Can you describe the smell?
You get kind of like a dead animal smell, like a rotten smell, but also just, and I know why, and there's garbage. There's garbage drug back in there a lot too. So you get a mixture of that. I don't know if you've ever been around an animal's den or come upon like a coyote den or something, but they have an odor where they've been there so often, so I would call it really more like a wet dog, rotten smell, just rotten urine. That's what I want to say. Yeah. Very unpleasant.
Yeah, a lot of people describe that same type of smell. And it kind of makes sense to me now why, when you bought the property you bought, even though it's closed and you've had these encounters, why you thought the place was haunted, because they weren't coming up to your dad's place at night. They were never coming up to the home. But tell me why you thought the home was haunted when you first moved in.
Yeah, I was convinced, and I was like so ready to move. Now, look, I'm ready to move over that. It started out, and it started off right away as soon as I moved in. I went here a week, and it was always around the same time, around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, somewhere in between there. Something would knock on my house, like boom, 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 real hard. That was it. Maybe enough to wake you up. And it stinks because you're always in like a groggy sleep, because I start work early in the morning, so I have to go to bed, because I used to try to sit up and wait it out, and I would fall asleep all the time. So you're coming out of a sleep, and you're sort of like dazed and, not thinking straight. And the first couple times it happened, I went and answered the door. And at first I thought the gentleman that lived here prior to me worked night shift. And in my head, I thought, well, that's his friends. Maybe they think he still lives here, and maybe they're knocking on the door. So I would open the door, expecting to see a person and say, hey, he don't live here no more. Please quit pounding on my door at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And there would never be anything. And it just kept going. Then I got to the point where I thought, well, okay, somebody's playing a joke on me. So I would when that would happen, we would turn the outside light. I'd leave it off, and I would purposely flip that outside light on real quick and try to catch somebody standing on my porch. Never did. Never caught anybody. Never heard or seen anything, just the knocks. And that would happen around the house. And I would have pecks. Like while my kids would be sitting in their room, something would peck on their window, like tap, tap, tap. And I told them, I said, don't you go to that window. You come tell me, And they would, and I'd get a gun and sneak out the door and, just knowing I was going to catch somebody. Nothing. And like, what? And it just was happening so much, and I couldn't find a person. I couldn't catch nothing. I tried cameras. I tried everything. They wouldn't work. They would always be nothing, or they would get knocked down, or something would always prevent it. And I never could see why that was happening, but it was getting to the point where it was just nightly. And I'm like, it's haunted. That's all I can figure. The place is haunted. And there's knocks and bangs, and and these are distinct, like, they're not light. They're bangs. The one on the door was like hard, boom, boom, boom. And and on the house and everything, I didn't know what to make of it. Yeah, and that never happened growing up. They never came up around our house. So I had never experienced that before. I thought it was a ghost. I'm like, that's it. It's haunted. Now, I can't handle haunted, because I can't see that. So I don't know how you fight something you can't see, so I'm ready to get out of here. Oh, and I'll tell you another thing that made me think it was haunted. We were out by our barn, and this is all very shortly after I moved in here. It's happened just so fast. And I was talking to a friend, and I heard my boys, and they were like, what is it? What is it? And I heard them saying that, and I go, what are you guys doing? And they're like, Mom, check this out. And about 6 foot off the ground, now I'm really going to blow your mind, Wes. You're going to really just think, is a ball of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to say it. Ball of light about the size of a basketball. And it was blue, dark blue in the center. And as it went out, it faded out. As it went out, it faded to white. I know, you're probably thinking I'm crazy, but I swear to you, that ball, they thought it was a bug. I thought it was like some kind of a spirit, or I was like, get away from that. I don't know what it was doing. It was just floating around out there. I know it just sounds like so insane. I've never said that, and I cannot believe I just told somebody, but.
No, I believe you. I filmed one. I know exactly what you mean. And it was, night vision. I filmed it. It's the first time I took my camera out. And people would always talk about these lights they would see. And, I didn't know what to make of the lights. And we were out one night, and I saw one. It was a little smaller than a soccer ball, and it just illuminated the area, and I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know. I thought like you thought. I was like, it must be a ghost or a spirit or something. You know what I mean? I didn't know what to make of it.
And see, it just floated around, and I told them to get away from it. And that is what I thought it was. I thought it was a ghost or a spirit or something. I've never seen, in my whole life growing up here, I'd never seen anything like that. And I didn't know. Once I told them it wasn't a bug, they didn't want me anywhere near it anyway. They actually thought they're like, it ain't a big lightning bug. I'm like, that is not no, absolutely not. And it was right amongst us, just right amongst us. And the girl I was talking to, she's from around here. Boy, she was like, I'm out. Like, I gotta go. It scared us all to death. This was in the middle of the summer, and I have never seen anything like that before or since. And we got away from it, and I don't know where it went or what it did, but we went in the house and got away from it. And those things combined made me think the house was haunted.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the lights. I don't think I've ever talked to anyone who's had these things on their property that doesn't bring up the lights, these balls of light flying around. And I don't know what they are. I don't know what to make of them, but they get reported a lot of times.
I don't know what that would be. I don't. That just blows my mind. And see, I had never heard that. I just never heard that. I didn't even discover like listening. We just recently got, Wi-Fi where I live. So I just recently got to be able to listen to a lot of these. And that is what, to be honest, it's been a relief because I did not know that anybody else had things like this. And I didn't know, I don't know. It's just nice to hear that other people knew what I was talking about. So I haven't had a lot of time to listen to other people's, but I just to find out that this was not an isolated thing, just where I live, it was kind of a relief. I didn't realize how widespread it was, or I didn't know that anybody else ever saw those lights. I don't know what that is, but
Yeah, be careful.
It's been a plus.
Be careful with the lights. It seems like when we were looking at it, the more we took interest in it, the more it took interest in us. And I don't know what it was. To this day, I couldn't tell you what it was. It was bizarre.
Yeah.
I'll send you the video if you want to see it. But
oh my gosh, I would love to. Oh my gosh. See, I wish I would have thought of not been so panicked and took a picture or something. I panicked because it did not try to get away. They were actually, my kids were actually messing with it. And I heard them discussing it amongst themselves, like, what is that? And when I saw that, I'm like, get away from that, And it didn't make any attempt to get away, and it was just brighter in the middle. I remember that. And I would love to see that. That'd be crazy, but I wish I'd have had the frame of mind to take a picture or do something. I was standing there with my phone. Never even crossed my mind. I just wanted to get away from it.
well, I probably wouldn't have filmed it either, except for I had a camera in my hand and I was actually looking through it at the time when Woody saw it, and I turned and that's when I filmed it. But there's much, much worse on your property than Sasquatch. And when we come back, we'll talk about this Dogman creature that you ran into and how it killed your dog. We'll be back in a moment. And the sponsor for the show is MyBookie. One of my favorite sponsors, actually. I still use MyBookie. March Madness is here, and it's time to bet with the best at MyBookie. They've been in business for years, and they are growing like wildfire. The best part is, they pay out fast. March Madness is the most exciting, action-packed sporting event of the year. Place your bets with MyBookie now before you miss out. Bet with the best, only at MyBookie. Try for yourself by visiting mybookie.ag today. And if you deposit now, MyBookie will give you a 50% sign-up bonus, up to a $1,000 bonus, just for entering the promo code Sasquatch. That promo code is Sasquatch. You play, you win, you get paid. Only at mybookie.ag. Thank you again to MyBookie. Let's jump back here with Linda. Linda, welcome back to the show. Now, there's something else going on your property. You recently ran into something else on your property that wasn't a Sasquatch. Tell me about that.
I did, and this is the worst thing ever. I mean, this is by far the worst thing, and this I would move over if I ever see it again. My son, I'm just going to throw this in real quick. My son had seen it and not said anything to me until after this happened. Everything had quieted down with the knocking and all that. But something was creeping around our house a lot at night, and I knew it, but I was used to that. But the dogs, everything started acting a little bit differently. And I started having animals disappear. Started my cats, dogs getting tore up. And I mean, not just killed, but like ripped apart. And now, see, you got to remember, I had never encountered this with the other thing. So to me, it just felt different. I know that doesn't make any sense, but I just felt like it's something more, something different. I can't put my finger on it, but I was tired. I had never lost animals and things like that before, but it would just be ferocious, just bloody, just ripping them apart, just not even eating them. Sometimes stuffing them up under buildings and things. And I was really upset. Now I grew up in the country, and it's me and my two kids here. So I've had to learn to kind of take care of myself a little bit. And I have always done pretty much what my dad did when things would get too close, regardless of how scared I was. I'd go out and you have to kind of make a stand, like this is my place. But I didn't know what this was. But I decided that if it killed another thing on my property, I was killing it back. So they had started tapping on my son's window a lot. I told you that. Well, this was different. He said, it's raking it. It was raking its nails. It was leaving like raked nail marks down my windows, and you could see them. You can see them on my screen. And I just, in my heart, I'm like, this is something different. This is just different. So one night we were sitting in the house and we hear a god awful noise, and it's one of my dogs being killed right out here in the driveway. That was just horrible. And I'm not going to sit there and listen to that. I couldn't. So I grabbed a gun. I grabbed a big gun too. We all did. And I'm like, you stay on the porch. You boys stay on the porch. But I'm shooting this. I'm not letting it do this. I can't handle that. So I come out to the end of the porch, and as soon as I opened the door, it quit. As soon as I opened the door, it let the dog go, and I seen it. Now, when I say I seen it, I just saw a figure run behind. I had a large semi parked right here in my driveway. It run behind it. And I come to the edge of the porch, and I shine the flashlight, and I'm trying to find the dog, and I seen him laying there. And he's not dead, but he should have been. And I was really upset. I just instantly started crying, but I also got mad. And I was like, and I kind of shine that flashlight. I follow the ground because there's some blood. And I shine it up on the back of that semi. And there is something with its, I've seen hands, like big claws, like on the side. Like it was on the back side of it looking around at me. And as I followed it up with that flashlight, I hit this face. It looked like a demon. Like I thought it was a devil. It felt like a devil. And I thought, that cannot be what I'm seeing. And I cocked my gun. When I did, it growled. And I mean, it growled. It was the deepest, scariest freaking, oh God, just went right through me. Oh, I wasn't going to take another step. I couldn't take another step. I just froze. Just froze right there. And I had a gun. I had an AR at 308. I mean, I could have done something, but I just froze. I didn't know what that was, but all I can tell you is it looked just like a werewolf, just like you see off TV, as crazy as that sounds. And all I could think of was that was a devil. And I heard my son, he had creeped up behind me. I could have choked him, and he whispers in my ear, "That's a demon, Mom." And I'm like, "Get back in the house." And we all just backed up. And on my way, it sounds mean, but I grabbed that dog by the collar and drug him because I was so afraid to bend down. I didn't want to put my back to the thing and bend down and pick him up. So I just drug him by his collar up on the porch. And I had my son pick him up and carry him in the house. And then I backed back into the house. I didn't know what it was, and that was it. That was the most horrifying thing I've ever seen. I can't even really think about it because it has changed my life because I can't even come outside like at night or nothing anymore. I'm walking from my car to the house is just nightmarish. I walk around fully loaded all the time. And in the daytime, I'm sitting out here like scanning the woods and everything constantly because that was a whole different matter. It just had a whole different vibe.
That is terrifying. Was that the only time you'd seen it?
Yes. Now I am in the house at this point. I'm like, lock everything up. And my son, I said, "What in heaven's name is that?" And he said, "Mom, I saw that the other day at the edge of the corn." And I said, "You saw it?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, it's a werewolf, but I think it's really a demon. And I'm like, "That is not a demon. It's flesh and blood." And he's like, I said, why didn't you tell me you saw something like that? And he said, well, what'd you think? What was I going to say, Mama? I saw a big dog. I said, yeah, that's exactly what you say, because I'm not closed-minded. I'm going to believe they would never say something like that, and I'm going to believe it because listen to some of the stories I'm telling. You know, I am the kind of person you can tell that to, and I'm not going to laugh at you because I was like, you should have told me, that you saw that. I don't know what that is, because he said, I just feel like that's what it is.
Was it?
And I'm like, well, what I saw was a real flesh and blood animal. But boy, it gives off the feeling of something completely different.
It, I don't even know what to say. It's terrifying. I've heard of people running into it. Exactly what you're talking about. When you saw it, was it standing up or was it on all fours?
It was standing up, and it was on the back side of that semi, but it had its hand. I'm calling it a hand because that's what it looked like. It had big old, this thing's got like talons on the end of its fingers. That's all I saw was its hand wrapped around, and it peeked around at me, and it just kind of like, I don't really know any other way to tell you, but it gave me a grin. Like you ever see something give you like an evil grin, like her? Like,
yeah.
That's what I felt. And I'm standing there with I don't know why I didn't pull the trigger. I just froze. I just froze up. And I was so mad because I thought, here I was going to go out there and really show them who's boss. This is my property. You get off of it. And all I did was freeze up and I just locked up. I couldn't do nothing. I just wanted to get me and my kids in the house. That's all I could think about. Just get away. I don't want nothing to do with this. I don't know what this is, but it's awful confident in it. And I just don't want nothing to do with it. But it was shredding up my dogs. And I had every intention, to be honest, telling you to come out here and shoot whatever that was. And I saw it and did nothing but freeze up.
Do you think it's still around the property?
At times, yeah. It's like everything acts different when it's around. Animals act different. The deer, they'll be gone when it's here. The deer are here now, so that lets me know it's not here. But it's like a thing that when it comes around, everything else can tell, and they vacate the area. Like the deer won't come over. There'll be the year that it was here, which was last year, there was a whole things of corn and soybeans standing over here, and normally them deer are in there every night. They don't even pay no attention to our other furry buddies. Like they go in there, they're all around me, fields and stuff are, but they would not. They were just gone. It was like there was no deer, there was no turkey, there was nothing. Everything was just gone. And a lot of the hunters were even commenting like, man, I ain't even seen a deer this year. Like, we were all like, what's the deal? And then this thing showed up on the scene. And so there was no deer or nothing around. It was like the animals knew that there was just a major predator on the scene.
Yeah,
and it was time to leave. I don't know. I know.
Scary. I
honestly don't feel like it's around at this point, like right now, but I don't know. I'm going to pay attention when it is around and mark it down, see if it's a seasonal thing. But it would be something I would pack up and move over. I don't want that. That thing terrified me.
Yeah, it would terrify me too. Have you tried putting lights up or like cheap game cams?
Yeah.
And none of that really seems to work.
They just get bashed down. They get knocked down, or they get turned down, or broke, or it just doesn't work. I don't know why. I catch everything but what I want on there. I mean, I've got hours and hours of coons and all kinds of beautiful wildlife, except for the things that I'm trying to catch on there. And sometimes it'll go off and it'll record, and I cannot see what it's recording. Like I'll just be looking, I'll watch the video over and over and over, and I cannot see what's triggered it, and I can't see what's in the video. It just seems blank, but yet it's recording like there's something triggering it, if that makes any sense.
It does, yeah.
But I can't find it, so whatever it is so camouflaged I can't see it.
You know what's interesting is one time a Native American woman told me she had these things on her property, and I was talking about lights and cameras and all this other stuff. And she said, you know, Wes, you know how to really get them to stay away from your property? Because she lived on a farm kind of like where you're at, out in the middle of nowhere. And I said, how's that? She goes, put sulfur around. Get it from the feed store, put it all around your property, and they'll avoid it.
Well, I will be purchasing me some right away.
and I don't know why. And I had someone else try that on their property, and they came back and told me that it works. And I have no clue why. I have no clue.
That's awesome. You reckon because it's just so awful smelling?
Maybe. I don't know.
It is. It smells like boiled eggs or something,
yeah.
I think. Yeah. Oh, I will definitely try that. Because like I said, the Sasquatch, if that's what that thing is, which I believe it is now. Growing up, I had no clue what it was. I just went with it. But I don't get that malevolent feeling. Like, I don't get that feeling. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm just being naive. Would I try to go be buddies with one? Absolutely not. I think they'd kill you in a minute. But I think they can at least respect your space. This other thing, I don't know what that is. I just don't know what that is. Something like that should not exist. See, to me, Sasquatch seems logical. Okay, well, doesn't really, it's a big, in my mind, it's a monkey. I mean, I don't know what other people think it is, but that's what it is to me. It's just a big animal. But this other thing is like not what I would expect nature to naturally make. A dog that walks upright, that's something we made up in Hollywood. I mean, that doesn't seem like that should ever have a pulse, but it does.
Well, what's interesting is your son's comment that's a demon, because I say that because a lot of people who run into it, they'll say it was evil. That's one comment everyone always says when they run into that upright running Dogman, devil dog, werewolf, whatever.
I don't know what you call it.
But people say it's evil. That's the first thing they say. It's evil.
It goes through you, and you don't know why. But it's like it does. It run a chill through me like I have never felt. It gives you just this real terrible feeling of dread and of like just bad. And if your sixth sense ever worked for you at all, it definitely will work when you see that, because everything screams just get away from that. That is no good. I don't know. And yeah, it's the first thing he said, and it's the first thing I thought. But I wasn't gonna, I just wanted to get them in the house and get locked in. And then I was so angry at myself for being such a wimp about the whole thing, and not, just kind of like shooting at it and being like, get out of here, stop tearing up my dogs, stop tearing up my animals. But when I saw it just was a whole different story. It just froze you up, and you get a feeling evil comes over you that for a fact this is a devil, this is something bad, and I just want to be away from it. That's odd. I don't know. And I don't know where they were at this time. I don't know if they coexist. I don't know. I just don't see that they would get along, but two big predators like that. But I don't know. I have no knowledge of them other than just the little interactions I've had throughout my life. And it just seemed like what I told you, that Sasquatch was just a lot more respectful of your space, and that you can scare them with some guns and throwing a little bit of a fit. They will respect your area as long as you don't bother them, I guess. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but that's just my experience. And that's the only thing I can go from.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate sharing. I mean, I could sit and listen to you talk all night. God, I love.
That's what's sad is I could, and the people around here, if I can ever get, and they'll open up to me. They would not open up to outsiders, but we'll all sit around and talk about these stories. And I was just asking them the other day, can I record you? Because I would love for them to all just start talking. Because there is not one person who lives around here that couldn't tell you story after story, especially if they grew up here. It's just common. It's just commonplace.
Yeah, it's I appreciate you coming on and sharing it.
Thank
Like
you
I
very
said,
much.
it's
I've never told someone that to somebody, especially that light thing. That just made me feel so ridiculous to even tell that.
and, more people see the lights than they do Sasquatch or
I'm
even
gonna
the
have to look
Dogman
that up. I'm
all
gonna
the
have
time.
to dig a little deeper. I
Yeah.
didn't look up nothing on it. I just thought that's a ghost or something. I don't know. This place is haunted. I didn't know what to make of it. I really didn't.
Yeah, I'll dig up my video and send it to you because I didn't know what to make of it either.
Cool.
You know.
No, and I wish I had thought of that. I was standing there holding my phone. I could have videoed it. It never even crossed my mind. I don't know why I didn't. That would have been so neat, but I was scared of it. I just thought it was, like I said, I thought it was a ghost, and I just wanted to get away. But yeah, I should have just tried to video it. Been neat. I don't know why it didn't cross my mind to do that. It's so strange. A lot of times when things are happening, I used to watch TV and I used to watch that and I'd be like, oh, why didn't I get that on film? But I've done the same thing. I've had many opportunities to get things, and the last thing on your mind is getting
it
on film. And
Yeah.
it shouldn't be, but it is. You just want to get away, or you just want to get to where you're safe. And then you're like, dang it, why didn't I get out my camera? But
it is the furthest thing from your mind, really.
you just think about saving your own bacon at the time.
Yeah.
Just save my butt, get in there and get safe, especially with my kids involved. I just want to get them in the house, and get them safe. But it shouldn't be that you have to stay locked up in your house at night. Unfortunately, it is, but it's our norm, so it's not that big a deal to us. We will come on the porch, but ever stray away from the house at night. It's just not something we do.
Yeah, it's I almost wonder. I need to go back and I don't want you to say it now on the air, but I kind of want to see if you live near where the brothers live, because they said the same thing. They said at night no one goes out. It's like a ghost town. As soon as the sun goes down, ghost town.
Yeah, this is everything. Even in towns like the small towns, close up shop. Like they shut up the doors and everything's closed, so you don't have no reason to go out anyway because there's nothing open. But yeah, everything shuts down. I would love to know that. Definitely get back with me on that, because I'm. This is just since I got older and I got Wi-Fi that I've started to make connections that, hey, this is happening to other people. So we're not as strange and weird as I thought. I guess it's still strange and weird, but the fact that it's kind of happening a lot more places just makes you feel a little bit better about your own sanity.
Oh yeah, it's happening way more than you think. Way more than you think.
That's crazy.
You have my cell phone. Do me a favor. Will you keep me up to date? Let me know if anything else goes on.
Absolutely, of course. And yeah, if you're ever in Indiana, you're welcome to come check them out. Don't. I won't promise you. You might sit here and that's what it is. There's no rhyme or reason to it. You might sit here for months and nothing happened. And then for like 2 or 3 weeks, just nonstop, something happens. You can't ever put your finger on it. You can never. And that's something I was actually going to start trying to do. I told you was mark that stuff down and just try to get a pattern. Maybe there's a pattern. I've never tried before, but I appreciate it, Wes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
All right, you have a good one.